morning, everybody. For those of you who joined with us last year on this, welcome back. For those who are new and haven't done this before, thanks for joining. I'm Jody Lesby. I'm the Director for Administrative Services at CDFA, and Tina Griffin, who is our in-house expert on all things annual financial statements, is with us as well. We just wanted to get everybody together, have a question and answer session. You guys are all working on your annual financial statements right now, and those are due to CDFA on October 31st. So figuring that you guys are starting to really get into those, we wanted to make sure there's an opportunity to ask questions, get everybody, and a chance where everybody can kind of hear the same answers, bring up anything that maybe others haven't thought about, and kind of go from there. So we know there are a lot of new staff out in the county, so hopefully you guys will find this useful. With that said, so Tina, her role is all of your financial statements do go to Tina on by October 31st. Tina reviews those, works with you all on questions and everything you may have, and then the data provided in those financial statements are what we use to create our unclaimed role to determining your county's amount. Food and Ag Code does say that your financial statements are due to CDFA by October 31st in order to get a share of that gas tax. So we want to make sure that we're working with you. And I'm sorry, can you please put it on mute if possible? Thanks. We want to make sure that we are working with you to help you guys meet that deadline so that everybody can get their fair share of gas tax. That being said, Tina, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I want to let you guys know, again, I have everybody muted, but if you need to speak, you can just unmute. Okay, so I'm going to repeat some of what Jody said. My name is Tina Griffin. I'm an accounting administrative specialist in financial services at CDFA, and I'm responsible for collecting all the annual financial statement county data. And I've been with the department in this position since January of 2020. So this year will be my third full cycle of the UGT process from beginning to end. So you should have received an email from me on August 10th for the annual financial statement with all the applicable documents attached. And those are due back to me. You can just email them to me by October 31st. And as Jody said, it's important for every county to submit timely because it's necessary for me to make the UGT allocation calculation. And the required documents are the annual financial statement, which is Form A, and then also the reportable expenditures and receipts report, which is Form B. And then also you need to include any explanations of variances from the prior year that are greater than 30%. And there's more detail about that in the AFS manual. So my duties for the annual financial statement cycle are, once I receive all the county's annual financial statements, in October and November, I will audit all the annual financial statements for completeness, and I'll contact you as necessary if I need additional info or any corrections or revisions made. And in December, I'll complete my calculation of the maintenance of effort, and I'll email letters to the counties that didn't meet the MOE 5-year average. And then in January and February, the MOE process continues with CACASA, which includes the review of the MOE justification letters from counties that didn't meet the MOE. And then in February, I'll email letters to the counties regarding the acceptance or denial of that. And after all that, in March and April, I complete my final calculation of CDFA's portion of the gas tax 224D and G, and also DPR's portion of the gas tax 224A, and payments get processed to the counties. So I guess I'll go over some common errors, most likely the reasons. I'll reach out to you. Let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, so common errors. Most commonly, if there's an explanation missed for a variance, it's not provided for all applicable programs, or if explanations are missed completely for Form B, which is the reportable expenditures and receipts report. So here's an example of that report. And at the bottom of this form, it says, in addition to the 30% variance explanation that you need to provide for this form, you also need to provide an explanation for any negative amount or any amount in capital assets or other charges that represents more than 10% of the total expenditures. So that's right here on the form. You need to refer back to it. And then sometimes the amount that a county reports for the 224D and G and the 224A received in the prior year, sometimes that amount doesn't match what I had. So if ever you're unsure what your amount is there, you can always reach out to me and I can confirm what the county was paid in the prior year. And I think that was all I had. Yep, that was all I had.
Hey, okay, so starting with the AFS, how's everybody doing on those? Is everybody doing pretty well on those? You guys hanging in there? Any struggles, questions, challenges, anything at all anybody's having? This is your guys' session, so this is an opportunity for all of you guys to ask whatever questions you may have. Anybody out there that wants to kick it off? Last year we had a lot of questions regarding distributing masks, COVID type questions, things with time off. We had questions about, if I recall, there were questions on how you count time when somebody goes out on maternity leave or on vacation. We had questions about that. We had questions on how to classify modifications to a building. Any questions at all? Anything you guys are running into? Don't all speak at once.
And you can always email me too. I can get you or find you an answer if you don't want to speak up here.
I have a question. This is
Okay.
Andrew Smith from Sonoma County, and a lot of counties now are putting together ag access programs in response to the AB 1103 legislation from last year's session for agricultural practitioners accessing evacuation zones during fires. And there's a lot of work that is done in counties that have programs by ag commissioner staff, and a number of the eligibility requirements on the AB 1103 legislation, as well as in programs that are specific to individual counties, involve going into CalAg permits for, referencing eligibility through evaluation of operator IDs and pesticide use enforcement programs, certified producer certification through the direct marketing program, and other such programs that have work that's above the line. And so my question is, and maybe it's worth discussing at CDFA and CACASA, is there any opportunity for counties who end up working in those programs to establish eligibility for ag access, to put time in programs that are gas tax eligible or MOE eligible, in a way to kind of leverage the work you're already doing in that program?
Looks like you just muted yourself, Andrew.
Maybe the mute function has a time limit. I'm pretty verbose.
That was me. So sorry, I muted everybody to mute one. That was my bad. Continue.
Oh, I was pretty much done. I just wanted to see if we couldn't find a way to put some ag access work in the future above the line. That way we don't pull people away from MOE eligible programs if our board wants us to do a program like that, or if we're getting into those program areas that are above the line, if there's a way to use some of that time in gas tax eligible programs.
That's not a question we can answer here, but that's definitely a question we can take back to Hiram Eastman. I don't know if you all know Hiram. He's a county state liaison between CDFA and CACASA, all the counties. We will discuss that with Hiram and see if it's something that CACASA wants to discuss. I know you guys have there's a fall conference coming up. Oh, Hiram, you are here. I didn't see you, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, no problem. That is a good question, Jody. Andrew, you're a idea man, always have great questions and thoughts. Yeah, whenever my initial impression is we will have to have a conversation about this. As you're aware, there's probably a little gray area because the AgPass program is tied specifically to emergency functions, and typically emergency response and emergency functions as in response to wildfire. Other emergencies are below the line. And so we'll have to take a look at this. So usually the process is we will look at it internally and then we'll seek some input if we think there's some squishy gray area. So I'll go ahead and make a note of that so that we can look at that. That's a good point. That is definitely a program that has come to the forefront in the last year and a half or so. So it's a kind of a newer activity that we need to consider and put into the procedures manual.
Yeah, no, I appreciate having the opportunity to bring it up for the benefit of the group here. And, you know, I think what's ultimately going to happen is people are going to get into those above the line program databases and end up doing amendments to op IDs, doing amendments to certified producer certificates, and then, you know, invariably doing work in those programs as a result of ag access. So thanks for taking it into consideration, and I look forward to the ongoing discussion.
Thank you. Tina, it looks like there's a question in the chat for you. I'm going to tackle that one. Did you mute yourself?
Sorry. This is new. I don't know what my problem is. Okay, so let me try that again. Okay, so we had a question. Curious about how to record time for those various leaves such as maternity, COVID, etc. So generally we say if there's any kind of leave of absence where salaries are still being paid, you would just record that time in the same programs as you normally would if that employee was working. The same would be true if they retired or any kind of paid leave that they would be taking.
So any type of absence is just treated as if it were time worked. So if they're distributed between 3 different programs, you would just prorate it, that additional time between those 3 programs, just as if it was salary. Okay. Does that, Gail, or excuse me, not Gail, Gina, does that answer your question? Any other questions from the group? Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I have a hand up. You could just unmute yourself.
What about unpaid time, such as FMLA? If the FMLA ran out of the paid part, now it's unpaid.
Well, if I'm assuming that if nothing was paid, if there was no salaries paid, then you wouldn't record any hours paid either, and it would just not be included in your expenditures total.
Okay.
Okay. And a question regarding, is that the same concept for a retirement payout in terms of vacation time?
Yeah, I think so. Just same, you could just prorate it the same way, however many hours of pay would be used. You just translate it the same way as you would if they were working.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions specific to any of the worksheets? All of those make sense to everybody. You're all pretty comfortable filling them out. We're going to get everything by October 31st. Darlene, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question. See if we can.
I don't know if I can unmute. I don't think so. Am I letting me disable? Oh, you can always type it in the chat if you're unable to unmute for any reason. We had another question in the chat, Jody.
Okay. So the leaves are not counted as indirect, but as direct hours?
I feel like that's a judgment call. It can probably be done either way.
So in general, I think the standard for vacation would be the same way as their other hours, as their worked hours would be counted. So if all of their regular hours are direct to pesticide, then their vacation would be attributed to pesticide. If if all of their hours are indirect, then their leave would be indirect as well. Because I think how we've been doing it is just your leave is consistent with your hours worked as far as the methodology. Zen, does that answer your question? Okay. Great. Okay. And Teresa, are you able to unmute yourself?
Should be in the top right corner where it says mic. Should just be a little mic button with a slash through it. Hopefully you can unmute yourself that way.
No. Heard somebody. Okay, is there, so does this mean those of you using CalCats are having employees put hours in programs instead of a leave balance like vacation sick leave? I'm not sure what CalCats is. Tina, are you?
No, I've never heard that.
CalCAS is a timesheet recording program that Calico, which is an IT software group, is developing for different counties. Many different counties have traditionally used different systems to record their time and manage their expenses. And so CalCAS is one that a company is developing that many of the counties are starting to use. So it's kind of a consistent time accounting software, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it looks like this is more a question for some of you counties that are using the CalCat system. How are you having your employees put their leave into the system? Anybody want to share that?
Hi, this is Marcy in Glenn County, and it's banks go in your leave banks and vacation or comp or sick leave, whatever you're taking.
Thanks, Marcy.
Yep.
Still have a couple hands up for Darlene and Teresa. I don't know if you guys are not able to unmute for some reason and want to type any question in the chat. Or if you're able to unmute and just want to chime in. If we get your question, we can help you out with it. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions or topics anybody wants to bring up?
Hi, can you hear me? This is
Yes.
Scott Wise from Marin County. Just to follow up on the concept of like maternity leave, for example. So typically in a timesheet program, we would put down, you know, that time is maternity leave or vacation or whatever. But you're saying that we can attribute it directly to a program on the AFS, right? So let's say we have an employee that just does PUE work. And so that maternity time you could have as direct hours in PUE, correct? Right. So
Yeah.
then does that mean, I don't know what the audit process is here, but so we can make that change, right, and attribute those hours to the PWE section of the AFS, but we wouldn't have it traced all the way back to direct program hours in PWE and our like case management software, because it would be logged under, you know, maternity leave or vacation time. So what would your guidance be in that case?
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, if it's just a temporary leave of absence, I would assume you can just charge it the way you would if the employee was working, because that's probably how the employee is budgeted. And I don't know. Again, I don't know, Jody. I think it would be a judgment call, and as long as you're consistent, then it all is the same in the end.
I would say as long as you're consistent throughout, if that's the way you generally do it year to year and you have that consistency on how you would apply that, I think that's reasonable.
Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you.
Tina, another question. Are you able to unmute everybody? Just disable the mute? Is that a possibility?
It lets me stop everyone from talking, but it doesn't let me. Yeah, I'm trying to individually. If I see the phone calls, let me see. Let's see the phone numbers. Well, let me try disabling them. Let me see if I can enable it. Yeah, that's a bummer. I don't know what the issue is, but yeah, it won't let me unmute anyone. I'm sorry. If you have quick access, you can always shoot me an email and I'll get it right now. And okay, got one. Okay, so I just got an email from Darlene. She says, had some questions about indirect hours being recorded. I'm unsure about what exactly goes in that column. You answered sick leave and vacation, etc., or regular work hours for specific programs they work, but I don't really know what indirect would fall under. I suppose indirect is for an employee that doesn't, that's hours can't be attributed to a specific program. For example, in my department, I work in accounting, so I don't work for any one program. I'm indirect hours spread amongst all the programs. So you could kind of translate that the same way.
I think a lot of the counties have used historically, and guys chime in if we misspeak, but your commissioner, your deputy commissioner, your supervisors, your clerical support, those are usually indirect. Your inspectors are attributable, they can actually be attributed to a specific program. So those would be the direct hours, more or less. So if you're working on something that you can identify, I spent 6 hours on exclusion activities, I spent 2 hours today on trapping, you could attribute those to specifically to something. But if you've got a supervisor that's overseeing a staff doing multiple things, then that's generally an indirect cost because you can't tie those functions, those hours, to one specific category. Does that help?
We had a tip. If you're on the phone, you can try *6 to unmute. Thank you for that. And Darlene gives me a big thank you. So that's a good answer.
Hey, Jody and Tina, this is Hiram again. While we're waiting for the next question to queue up, I was actually looking through some of my records in our current annual financial statement procedurals manual regarding Andrew's question about the ACPAS program. And maybe it's still early, although maybe 1025 isn't that early. Maybe my brain wasn't working as well. But when I was looking at the current annual financial statement under other programs, it specifically outlines that emergency response work, including the creation and administration of an AgPass program, is below the line. And so we've already made a determination on that point. Having said that, Andrew, going forward, if there's certain aspects of the AgPass program that you think can be directly attributed or tied to specific programmatic activities in those above the line programs, then we can look at that a little bit closer. But when you first asked your question at first blush, I thought, this is an emergency type activity. So it looks like that's what it is, but there is further conversation if you believe that there's some aspect that would fall under the work that would normally occur in those above the line programs. And that's something that could be considered above the line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that, Hiram. And I was aware of that distinction, but I think what we're talking about now is activity that goes on outside of the active emergency that's proactive in counties to address eligibility and work in programs that are, above the line. So I guess just further discussion at CACASA and CDFA.
Okay, good enough.
Can you guys hear me? This is Diane in Siskiyou.
Yep, we hear you.
Oh, okay, good. So I am unmuted. That's maybe not good for you guys, but so I guess what my thing is, those of you using CalCats or whatever time card tracking system you're using for everybody's hours, is I was unaware that we could use hours that weren't actually worked in a program, the way you're saying, they could be distributed, like their sick leave or something, they could still be considered working in that program. I am still getting a handle on Siskiyou since I've only been here. This will be my second report. I'm still getting a handle on just exactly what they've done. But that's kind of eye-opening. So I'm wondering if anybody knows how CalCats or their time card systems have handled that. Do they just take those hours completely out so they've never been reported? Or so maybe it's a John Haspick question on what CalCats does with those leave hours, because we've been right down to the gnat's eyelash, exactly this, exactly that. So I'm just kind of curious what everybody. That's just kind of eye-opening. I didn't realize you could do that.
Any input on this one from some of the counties?
This is Priscilla from Solano County. I believe it's not being counted as direct. I believe the annual financial statement report in CalCats pulls data there when you select a program for an ag activity. So I believe if there's no ag activity selected, it's not pulling to, say, pest exclusion or whatever in the CalCats annual financial statement report. But I would verify with Calco to see if that's true or not.
Yeah,
that's
interesting. Well, thanks for that.
Hi, this is Marcy. Sorry. Hi, this is Marcy and Glenn, and I just want to add as a reminder as you go through this, regardless of which program, timekeeping or paper or whatever you're using, you're going to take the staff, the employees' total salary, whatever the county spent on their being there, and then whatever hours they worked in throughout the year, not counting sick leave and vacation, it's going to divide that and make an hourly total. So if you put in maternity leave or sick leave hours in a program, it keeps dividing by the same total. And so it doesn't really matter, I guess. And that's what my thought is right now, jumping in on this conversation, but I do have to jump off to another meeting. But I kind of feel that it's probably, cleaner to not have it in there, but we'll see what everyone else's thoughts are on that. I know I have other staff on this meeting, but I do have to jump off. But it just divides from the total cost of that employee. So you could have two employees that make exactly the same, but they work different hours. They, took 3 more days of vacation than someone else, and so their hourly rate's different. But it all still comes out to costing the same because the total's the same, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that input. That's a great viewpoint. Thanks for that.
Okay, I gotta hop off to another meeting. Bye, guys.
Okay, and there is a comment in the chat from Rick that recommending that Siskiyou participate in the CalCats working group. Hopefully that will help as well. Any other questions from the group on the annual financial statements? Or at this point, we still have half an hour, gas tax in general. Anything you guys want to talk about? No other topics? Okay, Tina, do you want to pop your email in the, oh, did we just get another hand up? If there is another hand up, go ahead and chime in. Otherwise, and Diane, can somebody provide information for the CalCats working group to Diane, if possible? And then if you guys have any other questions, Tina, can you pop an email in the chat that you guys can reach out to Tina if you have any questions as you guys are making your way through this? I don't know, I don't know where everybody is on the annual financial statement process. Are we doing this too early in the process for you guys? Would it help to do it more in October as you guys are closer to the finish line? Is it easier to have this session earlier in the process? What do you guys think? Is it worth doing this again next year? What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I would just say, as a newer commissioner, it's really helpful in understanding through the question and answer the annual financial statement process. And, you know, maybe it is a little bit early as we're navigating developing the annual financial statements to really develop questions. And I don't know if there's a way to provide questions to you guys that can be shared with CACASA so that everyone gets the same response to the question, but just some ideas.
Okay. With that being said, do you guys want to just do another session in a few weeks? Would that be beneficial? Maybe mid-October, as you guys are a little closer to the finish line. Do you see any use in that? I mean, we're doing this for you guys. We want to make sure we're incorporating whatever you guys are looking for.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay. We'll go ahead and schedule another one. We'll try Zoom next time. Hopefully a little easier than Teams. We'll go that route. We'll schedule it maybe a month from now, so we're about 2 weeks before the finish line. Please join, think about your questions. If you do have questions in advance that you can share with Tina, it might help us get maybe if there's any research or anything we need to do to look stuff up, and we can make sure that we just address all of these questions at the next session. Feel free to reach out to Tina. She did put her email in the chat, and we can do that as well. I guess with that being said, I guess we'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.